do a few more pull-ups and a few more push-ups and keep that plank going and more squats.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Neurosurgery Podcast. I'm Mike Wang, and I'm here with my co-host, JP Kolcun. We are here to discuss all things neurosurgical.
Hi, this is JP Kolcun, a resident in neurosurgery at Rush University. Please note that this is not a CME event, and the opinions and statements made in this podcast do not reflect those of any institution or professional organization. Now, let's get started. So today's guest is Nelson Oyesiku, and Nelson really needs no introduction, but Nelson, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a professor of neurosurgery at Emory, and you are also the editor of the Red Journal, which is one of our major publications. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I'm professor of neurosurgery and medicine with special emphasis on endocrinology at Emory because my major focus is in pituitary medicine, pituitary surgery. And I've been at Emory, it's closing in on 30 years, including time for training and so forth. And I also direct the residency training program, which, as you know, is important for training the next generation.
So, a lot of people have heard your story. I have, maybe some of our listeners haven't, about, your upbringing and how, it's a fascinating story about where you've come from and how you've gotten here.
Right. So I started out in Nigeria, where I was born, and had my fundamental education and medical school. And then I went to England, and I trained in England at the University of London before coming to the States to actually formally pursue neurosurgical training. And started out on the East Coast in New England, where I did my general surgical training and a fellowship in neurosurgery. And then started PGY2, or the second year of training at Emory, through when I graduated from the residency training program. And during training, I sort of did a segue and went into the neuroscience program at Emory and got a PhD in neuroscience, studying trophic factors and how they help the nervous system develop and repair itself. And then started my career on the faculty and focused on pituitary tumors and neuroendocrinology. And so I've been there since then, and we've evolved and gotten better as time has gone by.
Yeah. It sounds like even you personally, even in those early stages, you went through several phases in your development towards your eventual career.
Right, yes. Yeah, it was one of these things where it's like sailing, you don't go straight right into it. You sort of tack left and tack right, but in general, you're proceeding forward.
So we wanted to ask you these questions because we could talk about anything. I know you are an expert in so many things, and you could talk about politics or religion, and it's so fascinating. But you have had these different aspects of your life where you reinvented yourself, and I know the one that comes to mind for me is this undertaking of the Red Journal when you took over from Mike Papuzzo, and you reinvented yourself. And so we wanted to discuss this topic of not that you're old, but because you've done the second or third acts, do we change as we get older? How do you adapt? I'm already getting scared at my age, and I'm in my late 40s, right? Can I take on something new, right? And so maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and what you think about taking on new things as you go through your career.
Yes. So I took over, as you say, the Red Journal, which most neurosurgeons know as Neurosurgery. The Red Journal is about 40 years old, and I took it over about 10 years ago from the prior editor who had done a phenomenal job growing the journal. And so my task was to build on that and strengthen the journal, take it to new heights. And it's been a remarkable journey. We've introduced a lot of new innovative things, multimedia, advanced media techniques. We've changed the peer review system. And we've introduced the third journal just this past week.
Wow, what's the third journal?
The third journal is called Neurosurgery Open. It's a wholly open access journal. As you know, the open access trend has been very, very strong over the last few years. So we just introduced this just last week.
So shameless plug. Okay,
Yeah.
so Neurosurgery Open. We're going to go listen. John and I are going to go find this, and we're going to start getting free articles, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Well, that's the nice thing about the open access is that it allows the dissemination of content without financial barriers. So, in other words, anybody can access an open access journal because there are no subscription fees that are a barrier to access.
Like a democratization of
Right,
knowledge.
it's very democratic.
But you're going to save the best articles, so you have to pay for, right?
Right.
Okay, so this concept. So you're a neuroscientist. You're a professor of medicine and endocrinology.
Yeah.
So this concept of senescence, neurosenescence. I know, like most endocrinologists I know, they're like doing like testosterone shots.
Yes.
Like, you know,
Growth hormone, too.
HGH. Yeah.
Yes.
So tell us about. So you're a neuroscientist too. So when you get older as a neurosurgeon, like, is it harder to learn new things? I mean, are you less creative? You know, what happens to the brain?
I think as we all have a ticking time bomb. It's written sort of in our genes that we're not designed to stay and live forever.
Right.
That's just the facts of biology. But we don't have to live our last trimester being fossilized and undergoing senescence. And learning new things and learning new tricks and being exposed to new concepts and trying new ideas and new adventures I think is key to remaining young and youthful and being able to reinvent oneself as it were.
So you actively pursue novel experiences, reading.
Travel, talking to new people, meeting new people, taking on new projects, trying new surgical approaches if it's surgery you're trying to do, constantly being exposed to the younger, more youthful generation because they're a repository of ideas and so on.
And that's a great benefit of being in academia.
Yes, because there's always a new student, a new resident, a new intern, and that's just the nature of the process. And so you get exposed to this incredible trove of new ideas.
Yeah.
How does a private practice guy do that? How you're not in, like,
Well,
let's say you're in a small town, right?
Yeah,
Private
if you're in a small town and everybody's aging at the same rate or different rates, and there's no new blood coming into the system, then it becomes increasingly more difficult to imbibe new ideas because first of all you may not even hear about them or get exposed to them, let alone integrate them into your thoughts and your actions. So I think that's one of the downsides, if there was one, of being in a small town or being in a small practice.
But that's a great thing about what you do as an editor, right? Because you think about what people can do, like listening to this podcast or reading the Red Journal. Like, it used to be so hard to get information. We were going to Index Medicus, remember that?
Absolutely.
Going to the library,
the
right?
big red volumes, and I think two things that I've been able to benefit from as being editor-in-chief is that it provides you this enormous vista into the specialty. You just by virtue of being where you are, all the new ideas pass through because people want to publish and disseminate their new ideas. So you get this incredible front row seat to the innovations that are coming along. Second thing is that's been terrific is that because we have a peer review system, you are the beneficiary of the opinions and of the greatest leaders and in neurosurgery, because they share with you their thought process in the peer review system. So it's like having a ringside seat to what's going on without paying a fee. So.
We're going to have Jim Rutka on soon, who's the editor of JNS.
Jim's an editor of JNS PG.
Yeah, and I want to give you guys equal time on this. I apologize because we're going to talk to him about how to publish, right?
Right.
And not to draw any differences between the two journals because to me they're equally valuable. Maybe you can tell some of the young folks out there, like let's say you're in medical school. Why do I have to write these papers? Like, why do I need to get published?
Right.
Like, I get it, but like how... I hear it a lot. The millennials, the Gen Zs, they're like, why do I need to go through all this?
Right.
I will eagerly take notes.
Right. Well, I think the main reason to publish is to disseminate your own ideas, whatever they may be, whether it's a new discovery or a new way of doing something or a better outcomes. Is to share the knowledge, right? That's fundamentally the number one reason to publish. Second reason, obviously, is for selfish reasons. You may need it for a job promotion, you may need it to get a new job, that sort of thing, or ascend the academic hierarchy. Grants, for example, grant support. A lot of granting agencies will look at your record of scholarly publication, and that will play into whether you get a grant or not. So there are some selfish reasons, but the most altruistic and the most universally beneficial reason is really to share your knowledge, right? Share it with other people so they can do the same thing or something similar, or they can understand the science better than they might have ordinarily done without your inputs.
Yeah. So you touched on something earlier when you talked about being the editor. You see everything that comes through the journal,
Right.
Whereas as a reader, I only see what makes the final cut.
Right, you only see
So-
what makes the exactly.
Give us and our listeners a little peek behind the curtain. What are some big trends you see, either areas where there are fewer and fewer papers in a specific topic, or maybe something you see reaching an upswing?
Right. Clearly, I think the biggest areas of inquiry right now are in the functional restorative neuromodulation domain. I think right now it seems like there could be no end to the innovation that comes about.
There's a target for every symptom, right?
Right, there's a target. We're understanding the brain circuitry better, we're
Yeah.
understanding plasticity better, we're understanding mechanisms of development better, and it's just seemingly there's no end to it. So I think that one is one area of tremendous inquiry, both on the basic side, translational, and then the clinical side. So if I had to pick one area that seems to be the most productive for the foreseeable future, that would be it.
So I like very much how you bring that back to this issue in senescence. Do you think there'll ever be a brain implant for reducing senescence?
Well, if you're all following the story, you've heard about the organoids, right? The three-dimensional brain neuronal cultures, which almost seem to recapitulate brain circuitry, and I think this is beginning to sort of get closer to the ethics of research. If you can put together a three-dimensional brain organism, if you will, they call organoids, and that can intrinsically have its own circuitry and electrical activity, and who's to say where human consciousness and begins and the organoids end. I think this is really on the frontier of neuroscience right now.
We're going to have to bring you back because that's a big topic.
Yeah.
But most people are super lazy. And
Yeah.
so what about the question everybody's thinking about now who's not a neurosurgeon? It's like vitamins. Like our buddy Joe Maroon's selling all these products. What's your personal opinion? Like, should I be taking all these like protective vitamins for my brain?
Fish oil, snake oil?
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, all we are is a bag of chemicals, right? I mean, that's all we are. We're just a bag of chemicals. So if you extrapolate from there, you might want to say that the best chemicals are the good ones. You don't want the negative chemicals. So I would put vitamins in the category of good chemicals. But the flip side of that story is that everything is a poison. It all depends on the dose, right? You've heard that before.
Yes, and patients don't seem to get that, right?
Just even water can be a poison, right? Too much of anything could be bad for you. So yeah.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's such an important point, right? That these are just tools and elements of who we are. Yeah. So what are you doing personally in terms of trying to minimize the effects of? Again, I don't want to. It's not that you're older. It's just what are you doing? Because I'm worried about it. Like, what am I going to do about aging?
Yeah. Well, I think the usual things, right? Diet, exercise, good living, avoid the bad things, keep as much of the good things. I think exercise, I mean, I'm not an exercise wonk, but I try and do enough to keep myself reasonably protected from, the natural things, like loss of muscle mass, bone density, flexibility, and that sort of thing. And it also helps sleep and reduces stress. So, we don't all have to be Charles Atlas, but at least we can.
Yeah. What do you do? Are you a runner? You like lifting weights?
So I go to this little studio that's on campus, and it's frequented by much younger people. So I get
CrossFit.
So I have that impetus to at least get challenge what they're doing, even though I can't keep up with everything. But I think that's really good. And they have a coach, and the coach kind of cracks the whip and tells you to do a few more pull-ups and a few more push-ups and keep that plank going and more squats.
That's great. That's great. We always like to finish this podcast with like maybe you can think of things that, or one thing that you learned, some kernel of knowledge, because we want people to get informed. We're neurosurgeons, right?
Yeah.
So what in the past year, like some new thing besides the organoids, which is really cool, that really you're like, wow, that's important to know. Everybody should know this.
Well, that is really a challenge, in the myriad of all the things that I've come across this past year. What you must know. I wish I'd prepared for that.
There's so many things. I'll give you an example, right?
Remember. That one I can't come up with. There's a lot.
There's
the
so
last
many
one I
things.
mentioned was
So I'm in my intern year right now. What would you say to yourself in your intern year?
in my intern year.
Thinking about pursuing new experiences, staying fresh.
Right. Well, in my intern year, I can tell you one thing. The one thing I wanted to do was to learn everything.
Yeah.
So like you're like an omnivore. You went to everything, every conference. You were there till late at night. And of course, there were no duty hours in those days. So you were just there. Half of life is just showing up, right? So you were just there, and that was the one thing I did as an intern, was just be there consistently, and that way you never missed much, right?
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is chance favors the prepared mind. You have to be available.
For sure, you just have to.
Yeah.
Showing up is the majority of the story. The rest of it is serendipity and that sort of thing.
Great. Well, Nelson, this has been fantastic, and
Right.
now I know we're going to go get the Neurosurgery Open. It's called.
Neurosurgery Open, our new open access journal, just debuted this past week.
What's the website? It's www.
It's academic.neurosurgery.oup is
Okay.
what it is. But if you typed in, Neurosurgery Open, Oxford University Press, it would take you to our website.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Submit.
We certainly will.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you
it's
for your
great-
time, Nelson.
Been great talking to you.
Yes,
Thanks,
excellent.
Mike.